We're going to close out our week talking about people and the different kinds of people that are in our world and in our lives. And also, as we're looking at our own self with these things as well, we're going to close out by looking at a couple more characteristics of a fool. So we spent all week looking at different kinds of people, from the wise to the naive to the wicked to the foolish. And as we continue to look at the foolish person, this is a person mentioned many, many times in the book of Proverbs as simply the one that does not want to follow wisdom. They do not want to live God's way. They do not want to tell other people to live God's way. Matter of fact, they're doing everything they can to draw people away from the way of God. These are foolish people. And these are the kind of people we do not want to be. And these are the kind of people that we want to stay away from in life if we can. And if we can't, because of circumstances, we want to be aware of them and their game plan and the damage that they can bring about in our lives. So we've looked at two characteristics of fools, or three yesterday. Let's look at a fourth one now. In chapter 26, verse 6, we find that a foolish person can be identified by the fact that they really cannot handle responsibility properly. In 26:6, it says, "He cuts off his own feet and drinks violence, who sends a message by the hand of a fool." So it's talking about then trying to work with a foolish person and perhaps giving them a responsibility. You send a message by them, but you're really causing yourself a great deal of harm because it's like cutting off your own feet, it says. This message is not going to be delivered properly. There's going to be some hang up. There's going to be something goes astray. And so you're like cutting off your own feet if you send it by a fool. So in other words, this foolish person, they may have a lot of bluster about how well they can do this, that, or the other. But when it comes down to it, they're very unreliable. And that is very painful to try to depend upon unreliable people. In verse 10, he says this, "Like an archer who wounds everyone, so is he who hires a fool or who hires those who pass by." So he gives a little bit different metaphor now. We got an archer. He's got a quiver full of arrows, and he's shooting those arrows indiscriminately. So as people go by, he shoots no matter who it is. It could be a bad person. It could be a good person. It could be anybody. He's indiscriminate. He has no discernment, no discretion. And as a result of that, that's what a fool is like, he says here. And he says, it's same as hiring a fool who hire anybody that passes by. You hire somebody, you don't know anything about them. You don't know their background. You don't know whether they're reliable. What do you expect when you go out and have hiring practices like that? So you cannot rely upon foolish people. They're going to do more harm than good. That's a qualification or characteristics of foolish people. Then in chapter 27, verse 22, they're almost impossible to change. That's another characteristic. It says, "Though you pound a fool with a mortar and with a pestle along with crushed grain, yet his foolishness will not depart from him." What an ugly picture. We have this individual, you're doing everything in your power to change this person. You're trying to get them to see the folly of the directions they're going. You're showing them the wisdom of God. You spend a lot of time, a lot of effort on this kind of person. But at the end of the day, nothing changes. You can spend hours, weeks, years, months, decades trying to help a person who is a fool, who does not want to change, and at the end of the day, they don't change. It's a very frustrating thing. But you can identify a fool by noticing that they are not changing. When to give up on a fool, that's hard to know sometimes. But there comes a day when you're wasting your energy, you're wasting your time. You're better using your time with those who desire to change and who want to do better. Well, one more word, even a step further than the fool, we would say would be the scoffer. In chapter 24, verse 9, he says, "The devising of folly is sin, and the scoffer is an abomination to men." Now, if a fool is one who does not want to go the way of God, who wants to live out his own wisdom, his own dreams, his own folly, and sometimes draws people to them as well, the scoffer is one that makes fun of and depreciates verbally and with their life the things of God. They're actually putting down in every way they can the wisdom of God and those who walk in the wisdom of God. They're more than happy to harm those who are living wisely. A scoffer, that's our final characteristic here. The scoffer who has gotten so hardened to the things of God and the wisdom of God that to them it's an issue of making fun. Well, we've looked all week long at relationships and at people. Some of these people we want to gravitate toward, and that's especially the wise. Others, like the wicked, the foolish, and the scoffer, we want to stay away from, or we want to definitely watch out for. And the naive, well, we want to help them. We want to draw them into the way of wisdom, to walk the way God wants them to walk, to keep them from going down the road of foolishness and folly. And so this week, as we've looked at relationships and people, I hope these wise words from the book of Proverbs have been helpful to you. We'll see you next week as we look at another subject from the book of Proverbs.